Hello, welcome. In today's video, we're going to take a trip down memory lane and compile everything that happened this year in the world of emulation. So many events, both good and bad, unfolded that we'll try to summarize everything for you. If you haven't kept up with gaming and emulation news, this is your chance to catch up on 2024's biggest highlights. Before we dive in, if you enjoy this kind of content, please hit the like button. And if this is your first time on the channel, consider subscribing for a variety of content. Starting with January, we saw the rise of Yuzu with NC, which revolutionized playing Nintendo Switch games on Android. The emulator received numerous updates, improving performance in around 70 games. Those were exciting times when each Yuzu announcement brought joy to players finally able to enjoy their favorite games on mobile. Back then, titles like Bright Memory, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Alien Isolation, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Life is Strange, and many more made their Android debut. While graphical issues were common, it's worth remembering that this was just the beginning. In early January, the lossless scaling software also gained traction. Many users were curious if it could truly reduce FPS drops on Windows devices. While it proved effective, there was still a lot of skepticism in the community. Around the same time, mods implementing FSR3 mode started appearing for various games. Patreon supporters could access presets that significantly boosted FPS using AMD's technology. These mods, compatible with any GPU, gained attention but quickly fell into oblivion, and today almost no one talks about them. January also saw the launch of EGNS version 5.0, essentially a downgraded rebrand of Yuzu NC with aggressive ad-based monetization. This approach alienated users, leading to the project's near demise. Moving to February, the RPCSN project was announced by the RPCS3 team. This private network aimed to reverse engineer PlayStation 3 games with discontinued online servers, restoring their multiplayer modes. Although progress has been made, the system remains limited. While a few games are playable, most still face issues. February also brought another major breakthrough from Yuzu, benefiting users with entry-level GPUs. The emulator introduced texture compression, enabling heavy titles like Zelda, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom to run on GPUs with as little as 2 GB VRAM. While this resulted in slightly slower load times, it was a game-changer for those with older hardware. The Vita 3K emulator also saw significant updates, including a version that allowed games locked at 30 FPS to run smoothly at 60 FPS without hacks. Most of these games performed without speed issues. Additionally, the compatibility list expanded to include high-profile titles like Uncharted, marking a major milestone for the platform. Lastly, February marked the release of NetherSX2 version 1.8, delivering a massive performance boost of up to 600% in some games alongside major fixes. This update made a broader range of titles playable on Android, pushing emulation to new heights. On a different note, the FPS4 emulator began gaining attention in February, promising the ability to play PS4 games on PC. However, its performance and accuracy were severely lacking, with even light games like Sonic Mania struggling to hit 60 FPS regardless of hardware. Today, FPS4 has largely been forgotten. However, this tragic month brought something even more impactful. On February 27th, it was announced that Nintendo was suing Yuzu. Initially, the community was excited, as it was believed that a legal confrontation could establish clear guidelines on what is allowed or considered piracy in the context of emulation. The Yuzu team declared they would face the Japanese giant in court, which led many users to support the project on Patreon to fund the legal battle. Moving into March, things didn't go as planned. Even before the first hearing, the Yuzu team dropped the case, agreed to pay a multi-million-dollar fine to Nintendo, and ceased development of the popular Yuzu and Citra emulators. Nintendo then seized the emulator's code, making it difficult to safely circulate these tools. However, the community didn't waste time. Within days, new projects started popping up. The first was Newsum, which was cancelled just hours after the announcement, followed by Suyu, which was prematurely shut down due to the immaturity of its lead developer. Projects to replace Citra also emerged, while the community debated the future of Ryujinx, which many considered safe because its main developer is Brazilian, and in Brazil, creating reverse-engineered software and emulation is not considered piracy. One of the most promising projects was Sudachi, led by an experienced developer. However, it soon disappointed by simply copying fixes from Ryujinx without introducing any original improvements. Another project was Lemonade, a successor to Citra, which generated controversy from the beginning. Despite this, it achieved notable feats, such as running Luigi's Mansion, Dark Moon at 100% speed, something even the original Citra had not been able to do. Currently, Lemonade still exists under the name Mandarin but remains surrounded by controversy. Meanwhile, Suyu gained attention for showcasing the home menu for the first time, a nearly complete feature originally developed by Yuzu. Unfortunately, trolls issued false DMCA claims against the project, causing harm. Initially, it was believed these DMCA claims were from Nintendo, but it soon became clear that wasn't the case. The drama continued in April when Sadachi accused Suyu of stealing implementations related to the game Princess Peach Showtime without proper credit. The Suyu team was divided, as developers recognized the contributions, but the project's lead refused to credit Sadachi. This conflict marked the beginning of the end for Suyu. Later in April, Discord started banning communities related to Nintendo Switch emulation, like Suyu and Sadachi, with the exception of Strato. Shortly after, all the developers of Suyu abandoned the project, claiming the code was radioactive. They also revealed that the Yuzu team had used an official Switch dev kit to develop their emulator, which explained the rapid progress in reverse engineering. By the end of May, a mysterious project called MyPS2 appeared on the Play Store. Although based on NetherSX2, it initially lacked basic features. Later, it received an update that introduced Vulkan API support and limited upscaling. However, since then, the project has not been updated, raising doubts about its legitimacy. Still in May, Torzu appeared, a Yuzu fork from the dark web. Initially dismissed, the project gained relevance by introducing new features, such as specific improvements for shadow generation. Despite its obscure origin, it started showing real progress in games. Meanwhile, Ryujinx decided to halt the publication of its progress reports, fearing backlash from Nintendo. Development continued in silence, and many improvements made at the time were only recently discovered by users due to the lack of official disclosure. In June, we saw the decompilation of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask for Windows. This version brought several improvements, such as increased FPS, support for new languages, and quality of life adjustments. Also, during this month, the Nozomi project emerged, a Switch emulator that wasn't a fork of Yuzu or Ryujinx. It promised to work without the need for keys or firmware, utilizing decompiled games. However, Nozomi hasn't been updated in over 6 months and appears to have been abandoned. June also saw a significant update for PCSX2, which improved over 120 games, fixing old issues like ghosting effects when using upscaling. These advances were once considered impossible. Controversies also marked the period with the release of Zyunx, another Yuzu fork that faced accusations of being malware, attracting little attention. In addition, rumors about the imminent release of Strato began circulating. Despite the community's expectations, the emulator has yet to be released, likely due to Nintendo's concerns about emulation on Android. If it were to launch today, it would likely face rapid retaliation. In July, Shad PS4 made its first appearance, impressing the community. Initially, it could only run smaller games, but it now emulates titles like Bloodborne, including its DLCs, from start to finish without major issues. In July, Cemu became an open-source project and started being developed publicly. This led to a noticeable performance boost and improved compatibility with various games, alongside updates to other aspects of the emulator, revitalizing its development after a period of stagnation. In July, Yuzui, a Nintendo Switch emulator, also emerged, bringing significant improvements, especially in performance. It was the first to implement the so-called enter-to-trick, allowing games to run more smoothly. This distinguished it from Sadachi, its main competitor. However, the Sadachi developer accused Yuzui of using a large portion of their code without attribution, claiming that 80% of the code was copied without modifications. These disputes were among the most exhausting episodes of the year and contributed to Sadachi's decline. The first versions of Cemu for Android were also released. Although the project is still far from perfect, it has progressed quickly, making several games playable. Its major advantage over Switch emulators is that, when optimized, it will allow games to run on more modest hardware. Another milestone was the release of PCSX2 version 2.0, which introduced a series of significant improvements. This update modernized the emulator, implementing automatic features like API selection and controller configuration. Additionally, performance was enhanced in several games. These changes revitalized the project and showed that even an emulator for a console over 25 years old still has a lot to offer. At the end of the month, Xenia Manager started gaining popularity. This interface for the Xbox 360 emulator Xenia, created by third parties, introduced a series of useful features like automated settings, one-click game selection, and automatic updates. It modernized Xenia's look and made the emulator easier to use, becoming a highly recommended addition for users of the project. In September, the emulation community went through a crisis, marked by fears of potential legal backlash and a lack of major updates in the leading projects. Despite this, UZX released promising versions, although in such high numbers that it was hard to keep track of the progress. Sudachi, stagnating at version 1.0.4 for some time, released new updates but with many issues, including regressions and difficulty in installing DLCs and updates. During this period, the only project showing consistent progress was Cemu Android, which in version 14 brought significant improvements, making more games playable and fixing the dark colors bug. In early October, one of the most shocking moments of the year occurred. Ryujinx was shut down. Nintendo issued a cease and desist to the main developer, leading to the closure of the project. Although rumors circulated that the developer had received money to abandon the emulator, this theory remains unconfirmed. After the shutdown, updates that were planned were revealed, including an Android version of Ryujinx, which, despite performance issues, already showed potential. However, to this day, no build of this version has been released, even for testing. 2 weeks after Ryujinx's closure, the Sudachi developer also announced that he would abandon the project, citing attacks from another emulation community. Although he didn't specify which communities, reports suggest his interaction with other creators and users was almost non-existent, making communication attempts difficult. He frequently accused other projects of copying his code, but ironically, most of Sudachi's improvements only came after Ryujinx implemented new features. This attitude led many to believe the abandonment of the project was due to a lack of innovations to copy. The last Sudachi update was widely criticized for regressions and technical issues. In October, with the fall of established projects, the community sought viable alternatives. Torzu began to gain attention, showing significant improvements in games like Shadow Generations and Princess Peach Showtime. Despite the difficulty in accessing new builds, Torzu established itself as a promising option. Other projects also emerged. The long-awaited Panda 3DS was finally released, but with limitations. Although it convincingly ran 3D games, it lacked audio APIs and controller support, restricting it to experimental use. Audio API testing only began in December. Final Burn Neo made a comeback with a modern interface and new features for arcade and Neo Geo games but still lacked an Android version, limiting its reach, especially due to current restrictions on RetroArch in newer systems. Meanwhile, Flycast returned with a revamped interface and new features, offering a refreshed experience for Dreamcast fans. On the last day of October, the Nintendo 3DS emulation scene received exciting news. Lime 3DS and Pablo MK7 announced a partnership to create Azahor, a new emulator based on Citra, combining Lime 3DS's performance hacks with Pablo MK7's experience, one of the original Citra developers. The project is still in development but promises to be groundbreaking. In November, 3 new Ryujinx forks for Windows appeared, with the most promising being GreenDev's fork, which seems to involve former Ryujinx developers. Although progress in this fork is significant, the developers keep the project reserved, making it difficult to gather information. However, it's clear that Ryujinx's legacy lives on through this fork, keeping the community's enthusiasm alive. It was also this month that, due to various reports, both from Nintendo and Discord, which had been shut down multiple times, the end of Yuzu occurred. To this day, I don't exactly know what happened, so I prefer not to comment too much, as it seems to have involved even legal action. Its developer, known as Phoenix, left the scene, but before that, she passed the project and all the code to a friend, who goes by the name Zephyron. She studied the project and released a new emulator called Citron. Initially, many accused Citron of being just another fork, but in a short time, influencers got access to test versions and confirmed that Citron offered real improvements in games that ran very well on it. The standout feature was its Android version, which quickly surpassed Sudachi and became the main project for many users. Today, Citron is widely recommended by influencers, and in its early versions, it already brought significant improvements for games that previously didn't even run. Additionally, in November, my second favorite console, the Sega Saturn, celebrated its 30th anniversary. To commemorate, the Yaba Sanshiro 2 emulator, one of the most modern and visually impressive, received several important updates for both Windows and Android. The updates included significant fixes, better controller compatibility, and overall project improvements. The last piece of news I want to share with you is the recent update of Citron. It fixed several issues, prepared the project for future updates, and brought improvements such as an enhanced audio API and better compatibility with Vulkan API. However, there were regressions in Zelda, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. These fixes will be made soon, but for now, the developer is busy with end-of-year commitments, which will cause a brief pause in the project. Finally, I want to thank you immensely for this amazing year we've had together. The channel has grown a lot, and all of this is thanks to you, who always watch, leave likes, share, and help me keep this project going. You are a fundamental part of this journey. So, in your opinion, did this year have more advancements, or more challenges in the world of emulators? Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for your audience, and I'll see you in the next video.